Hi all, so I wanted to just finish off the 3 weeks of practicals and reflect on some of the issues that we've been talking about during those practicals by actually going through one of the readings available on Moodle related to inclusive delivery, and I've just sort of scanned through this, and I think it provides some important sort of points theoretically about issues that we've faced in our classes over the last 3 weeks. So I really just wanted to sort of talk to that. So hopefully on your screen you should be able to see the chapter that I'm going to talk to, and I'll just sort of scroll through, and I've made some comments on it as I'm going through. So there's a chapter, as you can see here, by Ken Black, who's more of a practitioner than a researcher working in the field of disability, and has been responsible for working with organisations for about 20 years I think now, helping them adapt their practice, and particularly working with sports organisations to help them with coach education on working with people with disabilities. So obviously had a lot of experience in this area. So one of the things I sort of highlighted here, and let's see if I can extend, I don't think I can actually. So I've highlighted this, which I think is one of the key issues that we need to remember as coaches. It's about when we're working in inclusive context, just being aware that the young people that we're dealing with, or the adults that we're dealing with, basically have had a restricted choice. So they're coming from a background of exclusion to start with, and have had limited choice to be able to develop skills in sport and physical activity in the same way that able-bodied people will have done. And although there's sort of been quite a lot of work at the elite level and the Paralympic level, there's still very little done at that grassroots level, and actually increasing the everyday access for people with sports and physical activities. So this, I mean, really is a key reason why we're focusing on this within this unit, is that we want to change this and try and develop people who, as teachers and coaches, are comfortable to go out there and include people with disabilities in their sessions, whatever the disability and whatever the session is. So this chapter usefully goes through all the various different acronyms for how you can adapt practice, and I think we've had a go at doing these over the last few weeks. As you can see, things like changing the space, changing the tasks, changing the equipment, changing the numbers of people that are involved. These are all things that we've considered and thought about, particularly within week 3 when we tried to deliver to suit the needs of various types of disabilities. We really had to think about exactly how we could do this. So I think this is probably one of the key principles to remember as a coach, is thinking about what you need to change and how you're going to change it, and be flexible within that. Again, as I've indicated here, all of these sort of things that I've ticked alongside were critical in the week 3 session. So we talked about like maybe needing to score in different ways to promote equality across our sessions, and to promote sort of goals that were reasonable for everyone that was participating. We talked about sometimes changing the game rules almost completely to allow the game to be inclusive, and not being afraid to do that, I guess. The inclusion spectrum we talked about in week 1, and this is fairly critical in understanding the different ways that we might have to adapt our practice to work as disabled, as coaches working with disabled people. I guess the key thing that's stressed within this chapter, talking about this, is the importance of differentiation. So as a coach, being able to work out who you're working with and deciding what approach is going to be best to suit their needs, and very much tailoring how you do it to suit the athletes that you work with. So sometimes, particularly when you're working with severe disabilities, often a sort of separate activity that's kind of, as it says there, planned purposefully as a different type of activity to include those people might be the best option. It's not necessarily the most inclusive, but it could be the best option, and the option that's going to give the most enjoyable, stimulating experience to those types of participants. So again, I just underlined some critical factors here, and I think that's step 2 is definitely important determining the current capabilities of the individual. And we talked a lot about this and really needing to do that in your first session of coaching. What are you working with? How might you need to adapt? And I think we decided the sort of the best thing was to probably prepare for a base level, but have a range of options that we could use to crank up the difficulty of the activities we were doing if the base level was too simple. But the key thing being that no one from the outset should be excluded because of their lack of ability or not having particular skills. This issue in step 4, evaluate modification effectiveness, was critical in our week 3 practical session. So we had some adaptations that just didn't really work quite well, or we could have adapted them better, and when we sat and talked to them as a group, we came up with solutions for how we might alter them. So I think in the second tutorial with our adapted cricket game, we talked about different ways that we could maybe engage the person who is fully blind better in the activities, and some different strategies for modifying the equipment, better communication to facilitate that process. So learning from that more broadly, a key sort of aspect of disability coaching is evaluating what you're doing and then subsequently reflecting and refining what you're doing to ensure that you're meeting individual needs. The key kind of aspect, I guess, of this is your ability to be flexible and adapt and be creative in how you might adapt activity to suit the different needs of your athletes. So there's just some information in this chapter about how different sports organisations have connected with inclusive practice, and particularly in Australia there's a move now to try and embed inclusive coaching within all sports, so as I say, it's just the norm. And this is really what we're trying to achieve from this unit, is to make you think of inclusive practice as not being something different, but just being the norm, and feeling that you have some skills to set you off on this journey. So as you get more experience, you'll just be able to integrate whoever comes into your sessions with ease and have a range of sort of experiences that you can draw upon that help you adapt your practice. And this, as I indicate, is very much the start of that journey for some of you. Others have got more experience already in this area and are really building on that. For some of you, this is the first time perhaps that you've really had to think about inclusive practice and how you might structure your activities to make sure that everyone's involved. So there's just some stuff at the end of the chapter on qualities of the coach, and this is something that you're asked to think about for your own education sessions. What sort of qualities do you need to coach in the particular context that you focused on? And again, I think these are all things that we talked about with our own experiences of what we needed to do, particularly the flexibility aspect and being a good communicator and responding to what's in front of us seems absolutely critical. So just the final conclusion I thought was useful here, to just reinforce again what we've learnt over the last 3 weeks, that there's no sort of set formula for inclusive delivery. There's no kind of top tips I can give you in terms of do this and this will work every time. It really is about flexibility and looking at ways to adapt what you would do in mainstream activity to suit the needs of those participants you have at a particular time. So this, as it says here, lies with an inquiring mind and adaptable imagination of the coach. And I think last week when we did our sessions together, we really started to see that capacity developing in ourselves. We really thought about, okay, this isn't working, so how might we change this and alter this to make sure it does work? So that's the conclusion to the week 3 practical, and as I say, hopefully you've got some ideas now. We're not trying to turn you into experts in disability practice overnight, but even if you just start to be more aware and more thoughtful towards issues of inclusivity, then the practicals have basically done their job. So looking forward to working with you over the next few weeks on practicals of working with different types of communities and how they also might impact on our practice.